So the third and final video of this mini series where I rank all Premier League players by position, we're going to be doing goalkeepers and defenders in the same video. I'm hoping it's not going to be another 30-minute lad, so yeah, if you have to endure that, I'm sorry. But we're going to kick it off with goalkeepers. Now, I mean, goalkeepers on the Sora are just the worst position, right? From a scoring perspective, you know, if they don't keep a clean sheet, you know, the chances are they're not really going to score that well. Most of the time, there is exceptions, of course, where goalkeepers can get, you know, really good AA score, all-around score to make up for that, or the lack of clean sheet. So, yeah, you know, when I'm ranking these players, or these goalkeepers, sorry, they are like a breed of their own in that sense. We'll kick it off then with Alisson Becker. I mean, yeah, brand new look to Liverpool, new manager, of course. You know, you'd like to think the things are going to look, you know, relatively fine for Alisson. I mean, he's previously been, you know, one of the best goalkeepers in the league, if not the best. I'm pretty sure we kicked off the midfielder version with a star at top, Bruno Guimaraes. So we're going to start with Alisson Becker as a star. I think that one's a bit of a no-brainer, even though there is unknowns with Liverpool. I think, you know, they are going to get a decent amount of clean sheets, you like to think. And on top of that, he is a very good shot stopper. And so I do expect him to get some good all-around score to go along with it. Areola was rumoured to Saudi, as was a couple of other goalkeepers that we'll get into shortly. You know, again, new manager, West Ham, Lopetegui. I mean, it's tough to really... Like, there's going to be a lot of goalkeepers, I think, in this list that could fall anywhere between, like, tier 2 to tier 4, realistically. Like, a lot of these goalkeepers are all obviously very good goalkeepers, right? They wouldn't be playing in the Premier League. But, you know, as far as Sora scores go, it is very dependent on that matchup. Like, are you going to play Areola when he's away to Man City? No. Or, okay, that's probably the wrong question. But, you know, are you expecting a good score out of Areola away to City, away to Liverpool, away to, you know, whoever, United, maybe? So, yeah, you know, these goalkeepers, even though I'll be putting them in certain tiers, I'm kind of ranking that off like what you can expect throughout the season as far as scores go. If I'm putting anyone into like tier 1 star rare, then I'm saying, you know what, these guys can peak at certain game weeks. You know, they can get 85 plus. Not all the time, of course, but is possible for them. His uncertainties with West Ham, you know, historically not a bad side defensively. He is a good goalkeeper. I'm not questioning anybody's like actual goalkeeping abilities here, because again, they're all Premier League keepers. But yeah, I think tier 2 feels fine enough for a West Ham keeper. I'm not expecting him to peak a lot, if I'm being honest. And so yeah, for that reason, tier 2 feels right. Bart Verbruggen, again, new manager. So the first 3 goalies that we've covered, all with new managers. Bart is injured for the first few games of the season, so we won't see him feature, you know, until maybe the 3rd or 4th game in, if that. We haven't really seen, you know, much news on his reason why he's out. But yeah, I think he's a great keeper. Like, he's just played at the Euros for the Netherlands, right, at 21 years old. He's a very, very good goalkeeper. But are we going to see very, very good scores? I mean, again, it's really tough to say, isn't it? You know, without seeing Brighton play under the new manager and stuff. I think for now, tier 2 feels fine. Again, you know, there's a lot of uncertainties with a lot of these teams, and, you know, unfortunately, that's just going to let them down in the tier list. Like, I just can't really do too much about that. Muric, obviously signed for Ipswich. Again, good goalkeeper. Like, he can actually score quite well. But I'm just really worried about Ipswich conceding a lot of goals. And for that reason, I'm going to have to put him in tier 4. Like, I just don't see how, unless he saves a penalty, unless he gets a last man tackle, which he can. I'm not saying he can't do those things, but those things are few and far between. Most of the time, let's be honest, they are going to be conceding a lot of goals. And I just don't know if his all-around score is going to make up for that. It might now and again, but I don't think over the course of the season, you know, it's really going to pay off. So, yeah, for that reason, I'm going to have to put him in tier 4. It might be a bit harsh. Maybe tier 3 feels, you know, better. But I don't know. I think I'm going to have to put him there for now. Onana, great keeper. I think he does know the matrix quite well. Loads of diving saves. He's not a star rare for me yet. I think he might be, you know, in real life, but as far as United goes and new defenses and whatever, I think they'll improve on last year, you know, no doubts. But I think tier 1 feels fair there. Jose Sarr, Wolves, I think, will struggle this year. I'm not seeing enough strength in depth, to be honest, defensively for them as far as who they've signed and stuff. And yeah, I think tier 3 is pretty fair for them as far as how their season's going to go and his scores. Pickford, really interesting one actually, because, you know, Everton on the best of teams in the Prem, but he does score very well on Sora historically. Again, not everything that happened last year going to happen, or is going to happen this year. But I think we can put Pickford in tier 1. I think he kind of deserves that. Under Dyche, they are defensively solid, and I think as a result of that, he will end up peaking quite a lot, actually. Jorgensen, I don't even know if he's going to start, if I'm being honest. It could be Sanchez. We don't really know what's going to go on there. For that reason, I'm going to have to put him in tier 3 for now, because I don't know how that's going to look yet. He is a good goalkeeper. I'm not denying that. Had a good year at Villarreal, broke through. I thought the Prem move was a little bit premature, but it's happened. It's Chelsea, and what can you do? And yeah, I just don't know if he's going to be a nailed-on star. It's just very hard for me to really gauge that one. Edison's playing for one of the best teams, if not the best team, up there with Arsenal probably. But City are a weird one. Like last season, they conceded a lot of goals where they won 3-4-5-1, and they always seem to concede. And Edison never seems to make enough saves to make up for that lack of clean sheets. Yeah, they will get clean sheets, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if he's a star rare, He might be priced at that, but as far as scores go, are we going to see a massive difference between Onana, Pickford scores compared to Edison? I'm not convinced. I'm throwing him into tier 1, lads. I'm not convinced he's a star rare, to be honest. Might be a bit of a controversial shout, that one, but genuinely, I don't know if he is. I really, really don't. Just with, historically how City end up playing, they're so expansive. Obviously, they are going to steamroll a lot of teams, but they do end up conceding that consolation goal a lot. And that, of course, kills his scores. Dean Henderson, Palace, looked good towards the end of last season when he came into the side when Sam Johnson was injured. Of course, now Johnson wants to leave, so Henderson is the nailed number 1 for sure. I think a goalie like this has to go into tier 2 for me. He's not tier 1 capable for me as far as how good his team is. If Gahey leaves potentially to Newcastle, I think that's something that weakens Palace's defense. They'll obviously replace him with somebody half decent, but yeah, I don't think you can expect tier 1 scores from Dean Henderson. He will peak now and again, but not enough for tier 1. Vicario, on the other hand, the way Tottenham play again falls into that. Yeah, we'll outscore you basically. If we score 4, we're probably going to concede 2 or 3 sometimes. That's what happened a lot last season. Hopefully they can, maybe improve on that slightly. I think that'll always be in the nature of how Tottenham play. I think he's a great keeper though. I genuinely one of the better keepers I've seen play in real life over the last couple of years. And so for that reason, I think Vicario firmly goes into tier 1 for me. I think Tottenham will improve, defensively. As far as how many goals they'll concede. As far as goalkeeping ability goes, I think he's up there with the best in the Premier League. And then Emi Martinez, Villa. Villa have, European football to contend with now this season. Need a bigger squad. Have improved their squad for sure. Emi Martinez is an unbelievable keeper. He, falls into that. He's easy at tier 1. Could he be a star rare? I don't know. That's a really tough one. I think his scores are going to be very comparable to those tier 1 goalies. And for that reason, I think he has to just go there. I think that is the safest play. I don't think he's quite a star rare as far as how his scores are going to end up. He can peak. I'm not denying that. And he will peak for sure. Again, it's so hard to really predict these things before we've seen anything of any of these teams in the Prem. So, for that reason, tier 1 feels fine enough for him. Don't get me wrong. A lot of these tier 1s could fight for star rares, positions for sure. But I'm just trying to be as conservative as possible. Matt Sells, we don't even know if he's going to end up starting after the first few games. They brought in that 6'8" keeper from Corinthians in Brazil. I think he'll start the first few, maybe they'll give him, and then if he's, not up to it, then he might get moved on. I can't put him any higher than tier 3 realistically. He's probably lucky to even be there. He might even be a tier 4 goalkeeper. Will Dennis. I actually saw today that if Liverpool sign Mamadashvili, they might send him on loan to Bournemouth. Now, Will Dennis wasn't even going to be the number 1, I don't think, regardless of that, being on loan in Scotland. So he is, the first backup keeper we've seen so far. For that reason, he has to go into tier 4 just because of, I don't even know if he's going to be, with Bournemouth by the end of this transfer window. So that one's a bit of a no-brainer. I actually own a Will Dennis, randomly. But Gavin Bazunu injured as well. Of course, playing for newly promoted Southampton. McCarthy will be the number 1 for now, it seems, if they don't sign a Ramsdale maybe, or if they don't sign maybe even Sam Johnston on loan, who knows? Or not on loan, sorry, from Palace, but they'd probably have to buy him. Bazunu had a tough year in the Prem the year before Southampton got relegated. Again, I actually own a Bazunu, so not being biased here. I think he has to go into tier 4 for me for now, purely based off he's injured, and 2, if Southampton do actually sign a goalkeeper to replace McCarthy, who's obviously set to start. Yeah, I don't know where that kind of leaves Bazunu when he's back fit in 2025, I think it is. And then we have David Raya, of course, of Arsenal. I mean, this one's a no-brainer for me. I don't actually think he's that much better than the 5 in tier 1, but as far as how good their defense is, how good Arteta has them set up, how many clean sheets they're probably going to get, it's very hard for me to not put David Raya up there. Do I think he's a better keeper than Vicario, Emi Martinez, Edison, Onana? I don't know. I think they're all level. I think Alisson's the only one for me that I'm like, IRL, Alisson is the best keeper for me. And then I think that, is closely followed by an Emi Martinez, Vicario, Edison, Pickford, Onana. But Raya's Sorare scores, I think, are going to be a little bit better than those 5 in tier 1. And that's why he goes there for me. Flecken, I don't actually rate Flecken that highly. I don't think Brentford are going to be that good. For that reason, I think tier 3 feels fine enough for them. Dubravka, again, backup keeper. I don't think that one really, takes much consideration there. I think he firmly goes into tier 4. Hermansson, interesting one. Actually, a really good keeper. Got promoted with Leicester. I think he's still under 23 to be fair as well. But yeah, I see Leicester struggling if I'm being completely honest. I just don't think his scores will be that good. So I think tier 3 feels fine enough there. And then Leno to finish us off. Again, I'm not really too high on Fulham. I know they've signed Emile Smith-Rowe or anything, but that's not going to really improve them defensively. They've lost Tosin, of course. I don't think Leno... To be fair, he did peak now and again last season. I will give him that. But realistically, is he in that Areola, Verbruggen, Dean Henderson realm? Probably. I'd say probably. So I'm going to throw him into tier 2 for that reason. I have missed out Nick Pope, who I think I would actually put into tier 1 if I had his card to move over there. So imagine I put Nick Pope in there. But yeah, that's kind of how the goalkeepers have shaken out before we get into the defenders. I mean, yeah, 2 stars. We've got 5, or it'll be 6 tier 1s with Nick Pope, 4 tier 2s, 4 tier 3s, and 5 tier 3s and 4 tier 4s. Yeah, let me know what you think. I don't think there's any incredibly bad shouts there. I hope not, anyway. Let me know if there is in the comment section. Let me delete those then, and we're gonna get into defenders. So kicking things off then with Andy Robertson. If he has shares in set pieces next season as he has over the last couple of years, if he does have set pieces and Liverpool can get into gear quite quickly, I think he'll have a big say in Slot's system. And for that reason, I think tier 1 is kind of where I'd put Andy Robertson for now. I think that's fair. I don't think he's quite a star rare, but he's not far off. Tuanzebe, I mean, anyone playing for Ipswich, let's just be honest, I can't see them really scoring that well. So I think tier 4 fits in quite nicely there. Ben White. Is Ben White a better card than Andy Robertson? Really? I know they could argue Arsenal are probably going to be better defensively, maybe more clean sheets. Fair enough, but if Robertson is taking set pieces and stuff, I can't put him ahead of Robertson. I think he has to be on par in tier 1 there. Ian Maatsen, new signing for Villa. Really like him. I think tier 2's fine enough for him. Interested to see how he really gets on, first full season in the Prem. I think tier 2, works quite nicely with him. Fabian Schär, to be honest, he actually can peak quite nicely a lot of the time, Schär. I do worry about his age at this point as far as, the physicality of the Premier League and stuff. It does kind of catch up with you in those sort of early 30s now, and I think tier 3 for me, just because I don't really bank on how fit he's going to be for the remainder of for the whole of the season. Sorry, he can score decently well on his day. I won't deny that. Harry Maguire, I mean, he's not going to play really, is he? If everyone's fit, De Ligt's in, and yeah, Lisandro Martinez. I don't see how Harry Maguire plays, so yeah, for me, he has to go into tier 4. Carl Walker, I mean, on his day, very good scorer. Is he as good as a Sorare card? Sorry, as Robertson and White? Not for me. I think he goes into tier 2. As far as all the the Man City defenders go, I don't think he's up there as far as the best 2 or 3. I think he's more in the sort of 4 to 5 range. Carl Walker-Peters. I thought he was going to move. He still might move, I guess, but they've got Sugawara in from AZ. I don't think he's that good of a hold, really, and for that reason, I think tier 3 feels fine enough. I don't think he'll play every game, so I don't. It's quite hard for me to really trust in that. Gvardiol, does he deserve to be into star rare? I think if you go off the end of last season, where he went on an absolute heater, probably does. Probably didn't have the best at Euros, to be honest, but that's besides the point. He's playing for City now. He's back playing for City now. I'm going to say Gvardiol actually improved this season score-wise. I'm going to throw him into star rare. It's a kind of a big shout, I think, over Robertson, but I'm going to do it. I am backing Gvardiol this season. Branthwaite, another one that I thought would move. Doesn't look like United are going to come in for it now. They've got Yoro and De Ligt. Don't think he's a tier 1. I think he's firmly a tier 2 for now. Romero is definitely a star rare. I think arguably the best defender for me on so rare for Premier League this upcoming season. I think he's unbelievable. So strong in duels. Yeah, I really rate Romero. And Mavropanos, West Ham, is he going to score that well? Probably. I mean, he'll be fine, but I just don't think he's going to light up the world. I think tier 3 is quite fair for him. Christopher Ager, again, playing for Brentford. I don't really see his scores being that great. And so, yeah, tier 4, unfortunately for you, mate. Mosquera, not a bad defender actually, but again, Wolves, I do worry about the state of how their scores will look. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to go tier 4. Trent, it's very hard to not put Trent in star rare, right? Like set piece taking defender. I know Robertson, we've said, is as well. But Trent does pose a little bit more of a threat, I think, from open play, as far as his delivery goes and stuff. So yeah, Trent's a star rare for me. If I'm putting Kyle Walker-Peters in tier 3, if they're both fit and they're both still at the club, him and Sugawara that is, I don't really know who plays. Like I'm going to assume Kyle Walker-Peters, but Sugawara's been good in pre-season, so I'm going to put him level. I'm going to put them both in tier 3 because I think he is a good defender, Sugawara. First season in the Prem, so there is unknowns, but yeah, I think he's a good player. Mickey van der Ven, obviously versatile, can play left back, can play left centre back. I mean, fastest defender in the Prem probably by a country mile. Is he better than Branthwaite, Walker, and Maatsen? I think he's level with them personally. I think I'd go tier 2 for him. I don't think he's quite Robertson and Ben White, as far as scores could go. Mark Gahey, great defender. Obviously, we saw him play very well for England at the Euros. If he moves to Newcastle, I think it's better for him. I don't think that one's a hard one to kind of foresee. But if he doesn't move, I still think he's good enough. I'd probably put him in tier 2 for now. And if he did move to Newcastle, I think maybe tier 1 is fair for him. Cucurella, obviously had an amazing Euros with Spain. Who plays over him and Chilwell? I know Chilwell's broken body-wise, so he's probably never going to be fit. But let's just assume they are both fit. What happens? Because I know Chelsea like Chilwell, so interesting to see what Enzo does there. Is he a tier 2? To be honest, he can actually score really well on Sorare. We've seen it during the Euros. I don't know, because of the Chilwell situation, rotation-wise, I'm going to have to put him in tier 3 for now. Because of that reason. If we see that Chilwell's out for 3 months or whatever, then fine. Cucurella's definitely a tier 2. But if we don't, then I think he has to go into tier 3. Van Hecker, new look Brighton, did really well last year. Great passing stats under De Zerbi. I think we can see similar stats maybe this season. I do think he needs to work on, his sort of ground duels and, the amount of duels that he kind of loses sometimes where, he just kind of steps in too early or he kind of lunges. And that was just from watching Brighton live. I actually own a Van Hecker card, so that's why I'm quite critical of him. But I really like him. I think he's great. I think he has a lot of potential. And I think tier 2's fine enough for him. I don't think he's a tier 1 yet. He could turn into one, I think, over time. And again, there's uncertainties with Brighton, right? What happens with Dalot? Like, they've just signed Mazraoui. If Shaw's fit, Shaw plays left back. So, what happens to Dalot? I think, the good thing that goes for Dalot is he is always fit. Like, he's never really injured enough to where, like, he's not in contention. And so he's going to either play left back or right back if one of those, if Mazraoui or Shaw is out. But if they're not out, is he first choice? I don't think he is. I think for that reason, tier 3, he's similar to Cucurella. Like, he's just subject to potential rotations, and I don't know if we can really trust that type of card on Sorare and give him, a high tier. Max Kilman, really good signing for West Ham. I think he'll be really good. He scored quite well for Wolves. I can only see that improving, to be honest. So I'm going to say tier 2 for Kilman. I rate him a lot. I think he could be really, really good. Calafiori, wow. I don't think he's ready for the start of the season from what I've seen. But, like, again, great Euros. I know Italy weren't in it for that long. But from what we've seen of Calafiori, I didn't watch him a lot in Serie A last season. But, his passing stats, his ability to win duels is second to none. I think he's, like, broken a load of records as far as fitness tests go for Arsenal. So, yeah, all that to say, he's not a star rare yet, but I think he could easily turn into one. And I think tier 1, even though there's uncertainties, even though there's competition, I think he'll be a tier 1 scorer. If he's on that field, he will score incredibly well for Arsenal. It's just, is he fit? Is he ahead of Timber? I know, and is he going to play, basically? I know normally those do deteriorate, what tier you'd be in historically, but I think because he's at Arsenal, the ceiling is just so high for a player like him with his sort of passing ability. Senesi, not a bad defender. Can actually peak as well. Again, we don't know how Bournemouth are going to really look. Is he better than those tier 3s? Marginally, but is he as good as those tier 2s? Like, who would I prefer? If someone gave me a free card, am I taking Senesi over any of those cards? I don't think I am, if I'm being honest. And so, yeah, I think tier 3. That's my way of gauging this. So, yeah. And then into the last row, starting with James Justin. Struggled with injuries, I think, throughout his career. Burst onto the scene a few years ago, didn't he, when Leicester were in the Prem. I do rate him, can invert as a fullback as well as playing right back. I don't know. I don't think he'll score that well personally. He's a good player, objectively a good player, but I'm not in love with what his scores could be, I don't think, at Leicester. In the Prem, Malo Gusto, very good right back. We know Reece James is injured. shock. Lad's just broken, unfortunately, and it's just a shame because, yeah, he's so talented, but Gusto feels just a bit more robust, doesn't he, as a player, and has kind of shown that. I think Gusto's a tier 2. You know, you've always got that worry of Reece James coming back and playing, so I can't put him in, you know, tier 1, even though Gusto is probably a tier 1 player in some ways. I think tier 2 is fair for him. Van Dijk, is Van Dijk a star rare? I don't think I can justify putting him into star rare. I think tier 1 feels fine enough for a Van Dijk. Again, you know, 32, playing in the Prem. Like, I know there's older people than him playing in the Prem, but, you know, we've seen over the last couple of years, I do think the deterioration of Van Dijk has been quite apparent. That's not to say he's still not world class. I still think he is. He'd actually look really good in the Euros. I'll give him that. You know, he's not the Van Dijk of like 3 or 4 years ago, and that's just being brutally honest. I still think he's at a very, very high level. And yeah, he's definitely a tier 1. I still think he'll score well for Liverpool, but I do think, yeah, we're just seeing signs creeping in, and that's no disrespect, but that's just how I'm seeing it from, you know, from the eye test. And so yeah, tier 1 feels fair for him. Pedro Porro, somebody, you know, if he takes a share of those set pieces at Tottenham, you know, alongside Maddison, maybe Son as well, I think Porro's a tier 1. I do. I think he's a fullback that can peak and will peak in quite a few games. And he's got a wicked shot as well, so he's always busy in and around the box if, you know, Tottenham are dominating possession. And yeah, I think tier 1's fair. Ole Aina, I don't know how much he's going to play, if I'm being honest. I really don't, because if Nico Williams stays, and he'll be a rotational piece, I think, at Forest, and I think tier 4, you know, makes most sense there. Lenny Yoro, another injured player, unfortunately, got injured in pre-season for United, so will miss the first few games. Or first few months, sorry, I think. Looks amazing for his age. Like, had an amazing season at Lille, broke through. You know, when Real Madrid are after you, you know there's something up. And I know they love a free agent, but, you know, he wasn't a free agent. You know, United paid money for him at the end, and I don't know if I can put him in tier 1 yet. I really need to see how United sort of shake out. I think tier 2's fine enough for now. He definitely has tier 1 star rare potential, but let's not forget, like, he's 18 years old. Like, let's just not get too far ahead of ourselves. Harwood Bellis, Jesus, how long has he been around on Sora? Great in the champ. I just don't know if he's gonna, like, we've seen him in the Prem before, but I just don't think the scores are really gonna translate massively. And for that reason, and I just don't think Southampton will be that good, I just don't think his scores will be that great either. So tier 4, unfortunately, for THB, although I'm a big fan. Ruben Dias, is he better than those tier 1s? I think he's on par, personally. I think I'm going to put Diaz into tier 1. He's the least susceptible to rotation at Man City. I think that's fair to say. Leader. Like, I think he's a great player. Does get caught now and again. I think that's why they probably play him, you know, in the centre of that, you know, Man City back 3 or 4, whatever they end up playing. But, you know, passing stat-wise, he's always good for a goal as well from a set piece. You know, he's a good player. He's a tier 1. Like, he's at City. He's one of the most nailed centre-backs in the league. We can't put him any lower, in my opinion. And speaking of nailed centre-backs, the centre-back that played, I think, was it every minute of every game in the Prem last season, William Saliba. It's one of those weird ones where Saliba is so good in real life, I don't think he ends up, well, he just doesn't get into as many duels as a Gabriel Mangala's would. I know he's not on this list, but we'll kind of give him an invisible tier in a minute. Yeah, Saliba is, for me, the best defender in the league alongside Romero. But the issue is it doesn't really translate over to Sorare scores because he doesn't get into duels much. Like, strikers don't want to face William Saliba. They'll go over and go up against Gabriel Mangala's because they probably think I've got a better chance there. Saliba is an absolute Rolls Royce, and I think he's amazing. But I don't think I can put him into star red just because he's not as busy as you'd probably want your defender to be because he's so good. Like, he's actually... It kind of works against himself because he is so good. You know, forwards don't bother, you know, going up against him and don't even bother to interact with the duel. So he's not going to get anything, right? It's just like a net 0. Of course, he'll do well on passing stats, you know, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I don't think, deserves to be in star F for that reason. That's kind of, you know, what's letting him down. Whereas like Romero is always in the duels and he goes to seek them out, if that makes sense. And that's why, he wins so many tackles, interceptions, and duels. Tariq Mitchell, I think he's a tier 3. I think he's a good left back. He probably should have went to the Euros with England, I think, with all their injuries, but I don't think he's worthy of tier 2 yet. And Valentin Barco, I mean, I'm a massive fan. You know, I've watched him go from Boca Juniors to Brighton in a very short span. He has, you know, I think I've said it on videos before, I think his delivery is up there with Trent. I do. His delivery is that good. He does have competition from your Purvis Estupinans. They might be signing Ferdi Kadioglu, who can obviously invert and play left wing back, left back. So I don't know if Barco is actually that nailed. For that reason, I'm going to have to put him into tier 3. If he was like super nailed and they had no competition for that left back position, which is obviously rare for any position these days in the Prem, there's always going to be, backups and rotations, right? But I do worry if they do sign Ferdy, that means there's like 3 good left backs there for Brighton, which I do worry about Valentin Barco's game time. If he does play, like he is capable of scoring in the tier 1s, like the 80s, 90s, like he can do that if he gets an assist, if he's taking the corners, etc., with Pascal Gross not there. So maybe tier 3 is a little bit harsh, but for the reason of like, if they do sign Ferdy, I'm just worried about the Brighton rotation, as we were last season with De Zerbi. So yeah, for that reason, tier 3 feels fine enough. We did miss out a couple here, so I'm just thinking Lewis Dunk is one that we didn't do. I think Dunk's a tier 2, if I'm being honest, alongside Van Hecke. You could argue Estupinan could be in tier 3 maybe. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Zinchenko probably tier 3 as well. I'm just trying to think of a few that we've missed out on, because otherwise we'd be here all day, I think. 34 minutes, so it's not too bad. Hopefully we can cut this down to 30 odd. But yeah, we've squeezed in goalkeepers and defenders into one. Let me know what you think, lads, of both. Is there any ridiculously bad shouts? Because I've had a bit of abuse in the comments already, which I expected. I understand it. But yeah, hope you have enjoyed the video, lads. If you did, please do leave it a like. If you are completely new to the channel, please do subscribe, and I shall see you guys in the next video.